Hello everyone. In the continuation of our previous model question discussions, today I will be discussing few more questions for Indian Society paper for your coming mains 2017. So today we will be discussing 3 more questions. The first question, it reads like, in the backdrop of emergence of new forms of violence against women, India needs to strengthen its legislations and their implementation. Discuss. So now you know the question demands, the first thing before writing you must take care is that what is the demand of the question. From the first go reading, you know that it is about women and it is something about violence, but it is not the complete question. The question asks you to write about that India needs to strengthen its legislation and their implementation. So you must get the exact meaning what in question demands from you. So while reading the question, now I feel that what is the demand of the question is that you must you must write 2 concepts here. Why India needs to strengthen its legislations, like what are the prevailing legislation, the existing legislation, why there is a need to strengthen that. And if there is a need, then how can we strengthen that, or how Indian society can do, what Indian society can do about that. So the question here talks about 2 concepts. Here it does not talk about all the whatever you know about violence of women, right? And so at the end I will be discussing what are the do's and what are the don'ts you need to take care while writing these answers, right? So here now you know that 2 concepts you need to address, that why India needs and how India could strengthen that legislations. So as the format goes for writing a mains answer, that you have 3 parts of the question answer has to be there, like introduction, body of the answer and conclusion. So in the introduction part for this question, since the question is about emergence of new types of violence, so in the introduction itself you can write about what are the new types of violence against women that are coming up. So if you see the different forms of violence, for example stalking, following a woman, and it forms 2 types, both cyber stalking and physical stalking. So the stalking, it becomes one of the new forms of violence against in recent days, and you must, if you have read the newspaper in recent year, you know the Chandigarh case where a woman was she was continuously stalked by a guy. So that makes this, again you can connect it to the current affairs topic, like how stalking has become a new form of violence, and people have started recognizing, also even the Indian laws, it has started recognizing as stalking is a kind of new problem, right? Then acid attacks. Recently, like in common days, like if you read newspapers, acid attacks victims are there, so it has become a frequent part of news headlines. So this again it is a part of one of the new kind of violence that is emerging in Indian society. The third, you can write about sexual harassment at workplace, though it was continuing, but different forms of harassment like mental harassment, emotional harassment, beside physical harassment, it has come up in recent times. That makes this topic again a current affair topic. Then coming to marital rape, again there is a whole lot of discussions about marital rape in again it is a current affair topic for this year mains, like 2017 mains. So again this is one of kind of new form of violence. Then cyber sexual abuse, different how the women's body, it has been objectified in different forms of social media or different websites. So again this is a kind of new problem that is emerging with the with the progress in technology and development of the society. These kinds of new forms that are the negative aspects, I think, for the development of the society, it's a new kind of violence that are coming up. So in introduction part you can just introduce what are the new forms of violence that are coming up directly. Okay, now comes the how you need to write the body of the answer, which must be around 150 words. So in the body of the answer, as I said, you have to write why India needs need to strengthen its legislation. This is not like we don't have any legislations or laws. We have several laws and legislation that are that are there to tackle violence against women. but still why this violence is happening is still we are not able to handle it. We still, women don't safe on on our streets and roads. So why this is happening, and why India need to that loophole, or where the Indian the laws are lacking behind, that has to be tackled. Here just writing the legislations and different acts, it won't suffice the answer. So if you write, like, again it is like you will be just judged on half of the marks, because the question demands you here for the explanation. Like if you write a legislation, then you have to connect it or link it to how does it goes, or why there is a need in this. Like for example, we will see that there is no proper implementation or strict implementation of many laws and legislations. For example, Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. So this act came back in 1961, but still we are hearing and reading in newspaper the dowry deaths happening every day. So what is there that is obstructing this in the implementation of this Dowry Act? And we know that the dowry, it's mainly because of the patriarchal mindset, and the patriarchal tradition or attitudinal change is not there, that is coming from the ancient times. So that is a hindrance, the patriarchal attitude towards women and patriarchal attitude towards taking dowry, that we are doing some mercy on while we are marrying a girl. So that it needs it. That is the loophole. Like what has to change? The patriarchal mindset has to change here for the proper, or to make this act working, or to make this act suffice the needs of the society. So you have to link like this. Every legislation you have to link to like how it can it is creating an obstruction, or it is a kind of loophole. So you have to tell the loopholes of these legislations. Right. Coming to other acts like Sexual Harassment at Workplace 2013, the act it came in 2013, but still Indian women at workplace, they are they are the victims of different kinds of harassment, and this is happening because still there is an attitude among the society that women they can't be competent enough, or they are not skilled enough to work outside the four walls of the home. So this again, this attitude of the society, and that's why people, or the women especially, they get harassed at workplace, that people think that is not their position to come, they must be restricted to the household work. So that again it's a question of mindset, that is that makes India, that makes it the need of the hour to strengthen our legislations, or the prevailing legislation of Sexual Harassment Act. The third is kind of marital rape. Again, marital rape, it's being a current affair also. So you must know like how how it what are the loopholes and why this is coming up, and in respect of marital rape, why India needs to strengthen or come up with a new legislation. And that today we don't have a separate legislation or law for marital rape. It is included under Domestic Violence Act 2005 and some provisions of Indian Penal Code. So but the India needs to come up with a new fresh legislation for marital rape, and at least it has to recognize the marital rape as a crime, because every day many married women, they are getting the victim of this crime that is happening inside the family itself. So these are the like quoting the legislation and what are the loopholes and why India needs to do and what Indian society needs to do about those legislation that you have to show here. The other reasons that why we need to strengthen the legislation could be slow judicial processes. There are no speedy trials or fast track courts that are there in this, that makes the justice prolong, and the victims, they get threats for that. So that makes a very long process. Getting the justice, the period becomes very long, and that's why I think India needs to do something about this. Then less reporting of the cases, okay, in urban areas people are now, the reporting cases are done very frequently, but what about the people or the women who are illiterate, what about the people who are residing or dwelling in rural areas? They are not getting, they don't have that confidence to come up and report their cases, because they are suffering at a local level, they are suffering the social stigma attached to their the crime that has happened that they are victim of. So again, this makes a grave, this here puts a grave need to that India needs to strengthen its legislation against this different kinds of violence. Then there is a strong nexus between criminals, police and politicians. You know, many times you must have read in newspapers, like even though reporting is done, but nothing is done about that because of the strong nexus that these criminals have with police, or some corrupt police officials which are not able to help the people or the victims to get out of this, or to help them in getting the justice. So this could be one of the reason. Then of course, since we know that the with the progress of Indian technology and the with that, you know, the cyber crimes are also, you know, getting developed, and many websites are there that are objectifying, or the commodification of women body is happening. So we don't have that, you know, incompetency of the police to you know, handle this cyber crime, or you know, there are inadequacy of laws also. You know, we don't have a, you know, the IT Act is there, but still some loopholes are there inside that act which are not sufficient enough to handle the current situation, or the current new types of violence that is happening against women. So this you know, in a nutshell, it forms the body of your answer. Here you have to write about why India needs to strengthen its laws and legislations. Coming to conclusion part, which here you have to write how you can, you know, how India can strengthen its laws. You have to give some solutions for that. So some solutions could be like special fast track courts, that especially for women cases, for the speedy trials of women cases, has to be established, so that the, you know, so that the women cases that could be handled and tackled at the earliest, and the women or the victims, they can get the justice as soon as possible. Then different schemes and acts, they need some modifications now, like for sexual harassment at workplace act, or like domestic violence act. So we need to come up with new type, because the crime, the type and form of crime is since changing. We need to modify our laws according to the crime situations. So the laws which are formed like few years back, or let it be the Dowry Act, which was formed back in 1961, now the, you know, time has changed. So we need to come up with we have to get updated these laws and legislations, so that we could prohibit, or we could avoid the loopholes which are there, or the obstacles that are there in that legislations. Then of course, with the increasing you know, events of cyber crimes, the Indian police system, it has to be strengthened, and it has to be skilled for tackling or handling the cyber related crimes, and that too per se for the women. So that the training has to go for the police. Now again, some new robust policies and their, you know, their implementation has to be strengthened enough, so that the punishment, the type of punishment that these, you know, convicts, they must get, it should pose an example before the society, so that, you know, these kinds of deviation from the societal norms which is happening, they could be stopped at the earliest, and especially in terms of violence against women. Right. So here you have to give like some solutions. These are the 3-4, right, a minimum 3-4 core solutions. You know, don't write about everything what could be done. Like here they are not asking about some you know, female feticide or something. Here it is about violence of women, that new kinds of violence is happening. So here you have to give what question demands, you have to give solutions according to that. You know, no need to give solution whatever that comes into, or whatever you know about women issues. Just give those core solutions which are demanded by the question. Then at the end, in conclusion, in 1 or 2 sentences, you can write about like the benefits of a crimeless society. So we know that a crimeless society, it's not only good for the women's personality development. Of course, it is equally important for the every section of the society. You know, who does not want a peaceful society, a crimeless society? It is important for the overall development of entire Indian society that is needed. And of course, when women, if they are feeling safe on the streets and roads and the workplaces, of course it will increase, it will have they'll put their contribution in the progress of the Indian society. They will have economic contribution, like they might directly contribute in increasing the GDP of India. So since they are the 50%, they form the 50% chunk of the Indian population, of course utmost care has to be taken, so that they could feel safe and, you know, secure in their workplace, in their family, on the streets and roads and everywhere in the society. And that is the need of the hour for India's development. Thank you. Okay, now coming for the what are the do's and don'ts that you have to take care or you have to keep in mind while writing, like what all mistakes you should not make while attempting these kinds of question. So the first do's is like what you have to do is like exactly get the exact meaning of the question, or what is it, in this here it is just written in the backdrop of new forms of violence, India needs to strengthen its legislations and their implementation. Discuss. So here you must get the meaning that the examiner or the question demands you to write. What is the need of why India needs that I have already told, like why India needs to strengthen. So one concept is there. The second concept is that you have to get the meaning, like how India could tackle that. If this is the problems, if the legislations are there and still they are not working out, so what are the loopholes, what we can do about that. So you have to write that. So these are the two core concepts here you have to take in mind. Then of course do mention some some benefits of women empowerment at the end, because we know that the conclusion you have to, though you are not sometimes it might happen that you are thinking that the whatever the changes in the legislations and modifications in the legislation are happening, they are not happening as you desire them to be. But of course you have to end the conclusion at a very promising and very positive note. So for that you can write some benefits of women empowerment, some like what will happen if women are empowered, what will happen if women feel safe in their society. So that will give a value addition to your answer, and that will, I think it will be a eye-catching and a impressive way to conclude your answer. Coming to the don't part, what you don't have to do, like here the first, when you are writing the need for strengthening the legislation, here they are not asking, by the reading the question you might get a feel that okay, I have to quote some legislations and what the legislations are for. So don't write only the legislation. The question is not asking about the legislation just to quote legislation, but the question is about India needs to strengthen, means something is lacking behind that India need to improve about it. So here it goes like what is that lack, so you have to give why India needs to strengthen, right? So you have to get, don't just write the laws and legislations and what the legislations are for. So this you have to keep in mind. Then again, don't repeat the points. Like for patriarchy you might think it goes for, of course it is the underlining the basic thing for all these the crimes and the violence, but you don't have to show that in your answer. You don't have to repeat okay, patriarchal attitude. So for everything you can't quote patriarchy. For once, of course, like for example here Dowry Prohibition Act, you can quote here the patriarchal mindset is there. But again, if coming to the marital rape, you can quote something like the women, they don't have any reproductive rights, they don't have any right for bodily integrity, and this is the reason that why this even the Domestic Violence Act is not working out. So that makes that creates a need for strengthening the legislation. Or coming at sexual harassment at workplace, again you can't quote again repeat patriarchy. Like you can write about the people feel subordinate, that women are not skilled enough to work outside the home. So different reasons, come up with different reasons. So don't repeat the points. That gives an impression to the examiner that you lack content. So that impression you don't need to give. And so first you have to take care of what exactly the question demands. Attempt each and every part of the question, read the question properly, get the key idea or the key concept that is being demanded from the question, and then write accordingly. And the last point is that don't write whatever you know about the topic. The question, it might be it might be a woman question. Like in the last session I discussed about impact of patriarchy on political participation of women. Okay, so or here it is about violence against women and the legislations related to it. So here it's not directly asking about, though it can be a dimension of women empowerment or the issues related to it, but the issues are different. The earlier question was about political participation, but here it's about violence. So you must able to segregate or demarcate that the different dimensions of the same women empowerment topic. So don't write here, they have not asked you some essay on women empowerment, yeah. So you need to understand the question, that what is the demand of the question, and you have to write accordingly, because here you can't write an essay on women empowerment or let it be the essay on legislations related to women. No, they have not asked you to do that. So get the idea correct, and you know, I am sure that if you are getting the idea correct about what is being asked in the question, of course you will write a very correct and decent answer. That's all for today.